Betting odds sure think the Atlanta Braves have quite a couple candidates who could win Cy Young or MVP. Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today, your daily source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby, award-winning baseball writer and podcaster. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can follow Braves Today on all major platforms and find all of my written work at bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today newsletter, also daily. We're probably part of the Believe Podcast Network and presented to you by FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com or download the FanDuel app today to get started and go do that to see all of the award odds. FanDuel has loaded in the awards for Cy Young and for MVP, and there are quite a few Atlanta Braves in there. They have not put up Rookie of the Year odds yet, but I spoke to some folks with FanDuel about the outlook for that. And it's not going to be great for Atlanta. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But before we do that, let's start with Cy Young. Because here's the thing. It's going to be nice for Atlanta to win something, or at least have a candidate for it. Because if you think about it, the last 3 seasons, 2 of them, the Braves have won one of the national awards, right? You had Ronald Acuña Jr. be MVP in 2023. You had Chris Sale turn around and win a Cy Young in 2024. It's just another way that 2025 was a disappointing season, right? You didn't have an MVP candidate. You didn't have a Cy Young candidate. But going into 26, the betting odds, which are not exact projections, right? But line up pretty well with expectations for these players. Atlanta has multiple starting pitchers on the board for Cy Young. The best odds belong to Chris Sale. He is tied for 4th best odds at plus 1,000, behind only Paul Skeens, last year's winner, right? Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who was one of the best pitchers in baseball last year, and Christopher Sanchez of the Phillies, who ended up being a very, very important pitcher for them when they lost Zach Wheeler. And he was just absolutely an electric factory there in Philly. 2.50 ERA, 2.55 FIP, so it was earned. He was the runner-up to Skeens. He put up 8 WAR, 202 innings, 212 strikeouts. Just electric factory. But let's talk about what Chris Sale has to do and the other Braves on the board. Because I think as you talk about Atlanta's need for a starting pitcher, we can talk about the skill and the talent of the guys that you currently have and what that pitcher would have to be able to give you. Because the Braves have 4 guys on here. Again, starting with Sale, there are a couple ways in which Sale was actually a better pitcher last year than he was in his Cy Young year. Now, clearly, it wasn't number of starts or innings. That broken rib cage meant that he only made 20 starts. But Chris Sale's strikeout rate actually went up last year. Which is wild to think about, because in 2024, he won the Cy Young, he led the National League in strikeouts, and he led all of baseball in strikeout rate. It was 11.4 strikeouts per 9 innings, which translated to a 32.1% strikeout rate. Last year, Chris Sale went from 11.4 strikeouts per 9 to 11.8 strikeouts per 9, and as a percentage, it went from 32.1 to 32.4. So he was striking out, on average, more guys last year than he did in 2025. That he did in his Cy Young season of 2024. There you go. The difference for Chris Sale last year, again, obviously the innings, the raw numbers from not pitching as much, but the difference was how many runners were able to get on base against Sale, and then his ability to prevent home runs. So in 2024, he was amazing at both of those. His home run rate was 1.3% or 0.5 home runs per 9 innings. Best of any starter in baseball. His whip was 1.013, second in the National League to only Zach Wheeler. Okay. Last year, that home run rate went from 1.3% to 2.2. The whip went from 1.013 to 1.067. Still really good. Still like top 6 in the league, but not second best in the National League. And some of this, and I'm not saying that it's entirely that, some of this comes down to luck, too. You have to remember that often when a pitcher wins or loses the Cy Young, there's luck involved, right? Chris Sale, his ERA in 2024 led all of baseball at 2.38. His expected ERA was 2.77. And often when you don't have that luck, that's where you end up not winning the Cy Young, even though a lot of the other stuff you did could have been worthy. Go back to Spencer Strider's 2023. He had the best FIP in the National League at 285, but his ERA was a 386 because he gave up too many home runs, which is something that is a little bit fluky from year to year. Blake Snell won it instead. Blake Snell had a 344 FIP, so over half a run worse than Spencer, but Snell had a 2.25 ERA. He outperformed his FIP by over a run, close to a run and a quarter. There is usually some sort of luck involved in winning these things, and Sale had that luck in 24. Sale didn't have it in 25. He needs a little bit of that luck, and he needs that health, right? He needs to be healthy. When you look at his stuff, and by this I mean stuff plus the measures of your individual pitch characteristics, actually got better last year. His fastball maintained at a 97, right below average. His changeup maintained a 100. Most changeups are not graded out well in stuff plus, so that's good. His slider went from a 114 to a 116. So his slider, which is his bread and butter pitch, got better and was one of the better pitches in baseball, like individual pitches. His sinker went, I think the sinker it had a weird underperformance in 2024. It was only a 95, whereas previous years it had been a 104, a 108, things like that. Last year it rebounded to a 120. The flip side of this is he threw it less than ever before. He threw it about 4% of the time. But Chris Sale's stuff has all gotten better. And again, it's a little bit of health, a little bit of luck. One, to not have underperformances of his inputs, and two, to maybe a couple blowups from Paul Skeens or Yamamoto or whatever, and Sale can win it. But right behind Sale are a couple other Brave starters. The Spencers are looming behind Chris Sale as well. Spencer Strider's at plus 2,500. Spencer Schwellenbach is at plus 3,000 on FanDuel. Of these odds, Spencer is tied for 9th with Freddie Peralta. Schwellenbach is tied for 11th with Jesus Luzardo and Brandon Woodruff. And Woodruff feels a little high to me. Like, that's a massive jump in innings for a guy that missed over a full season and didn't pitch a full year last year. But Schwellenbach at plus 3,000, Strider at plus 2,500, and it's kind of different paths for these guys, right? Spencer Strider, we talked about this a little bit when we talked about Jeremy Hefner going on MLB Network Radio. It's in your feed from maybe 2 weeks ago. Strider has identified some of the mechanical issues that was plaguing him last year, right? An arm angle drop, the velocity they think was related to the injuries, both coming back from the elbow, and then also the hamstring injury that he had a little bit later. So clearly, off of these odds, there is some sort of belief that Spencer Strider can rebound. I know that odds move based on where the money's coming in, but if they didn't think Spencer Strider was a legitimate threat, then they would probably price him a little lower down to get action on him. Putting him at plus 2,500 tells me that, like, they legitimately think he could win it. Because if they don't think he could win it, you make it look like a value. You put him at like plus 5,000, and then you end up getting a bunch of action on him, and now you have a liability out there. Like, I genuinely think that they're a believer in Spencer Strider's ability to come back. I am as well. Spencer Schwellenbach, right behind him. Every report that we have from AA, fully healthy, normal offseason. He was throwing in December at Truist because he is apparently still in the area. And being at plus 3,000, I think the things that he needs to, other than health, and that's just a given with all these guys, I think for Spencer Schwellenbach, it's got to be a little bit more consistency and ability to miss bats and hard contact with his breaking pitches. He throws both a slider and a curveball, and both of those pitches allowed slugs in the mid fours, allowed batting averages in the mid twos. They get plenty of whiffs. They're some of his best whiff pitches outside the splitter, 30-something% each. But when they get hit, right, that slider, 65 of them were put into play, 7 doubles, a triple, 3 home runs. On the curveball, 21 of them were put into play, 2 home runs and a double. The only pitch that gave up more home runs for Spencer Schwellenbach than his slider was his four-seamer, and he threw twice as many four-seamers as anything else, and it was only 4 homers. When he misses with those breaking balls, they get blasted. Or when a guy is sitting on those breaking balls, they get blasted. And that's kind of why I wrote maybe 2 weeks ago about optimization of these guys and the sequencing and making sure they're not overusing some of these pitches so that you can't sit on the slider or you can't sit on the curveball, because if you do, it's going to get launched. And that's really the only thing other than health holding Spencer Schwellenbach back. Again, the home runs that he gave up last year, he gave up 13 home runs. 5 of them came on his breaking balls. And those are supposed to be, kind of bread and butter pitches that you're not really doing that to. And again, he gave up 2 homers on the curveball in only 21 put into play. So that's kind of the limiting factor there. There's another Brave starter, though, on this list, and it's Hurston Waldrep. He's at plus 10,000. It's an interesting group back there. Andrew Abbott, Matthew Boyd, Robbie Ray, Andrew Painter, Kodai Senga, Bubba Chandler. It's a bunch of young players, a veteran in Ray, and a guy in Abbott who's not fully broken out but looks to be a pretty decent piece. And for Hurston Waldrep, I think it comes down to 2 things. One is just what kind of workload can he put up? I know we talked late last year about it seemed like when Sean Murphy went down, he struggled the last start or 2. Some of that also was the workload. I talked to people in the organization that know Hurston that said that he was just gassed. It was a long season, and it was the first time he's really been, because you think about the injury he had in 24? Yeah. The elbow injury he had in 24. This was the first time he had pitched that long, really, in his life. He did have that post-draft thing where he went to the College World Series and then was drafted and pitched some, but even then it wasn't as long as this was. And it wasn't pitching every 5th day, because in college you pitch once a week. So, longest season of his career, and he just got a little gas towards the end. And so the question is going to be, well, I guess 1, when does he get up to the majors? Because it feels inevitable. You're going to have an injury. And even if he starts the season in AAA, which I think is the right move to do, you're still going to bring him up, and he's going to make a ton of starts. It's just, when does he get up here? And then workload-wise, can he make it through the entire year? He probably only has to throw 175 or 180 innings if he's amazing like Chris Sale was. This is really a long shot, but if this works out, you have the best rotation Atlanta's had since the mid-90s era of the Big Three. In just a minute, let's talk about the MVP odds, because there's quite a few Braves on this board as well, including a really interesting order. We'll talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby talking about the national awards, right? MVP, Cy Young. These odds are on FanDuel. FanDuel, Braves Today sponsor FanDuel, FanDuel.com and the FanDuel app. And on MVP, obviously, clearly, the favorite is Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani is probably going to be the favorite for MVP any season that he is playing in baseball until he retires, or the aging curve hits him and he starts not looking like a absolutely absurd baseball destroying alien sent here to just dominate the game. Juan Soto is second at plus 900. And if you think about what Juan Soto did last year, okay, I get it. Defensively, he wasn't anything special. You don't have to be a good defender to win MVP, but, he hit 263. He led the National League in on base at 396. So it was a 921 OPS. He led the National League in stolen bases with 38. He led the league in walks with 127. He hit 43 home runs. He was 2 stolen bases away from a 40-40 season. And he is not a fast man, which is why I am incredibly excited about the addition of Antoine Richardson for first base coach, because he's the one that got that out of Juan Soto. He's the one that made them like second in baseball in base running run value, despite the fact they're the second slowest roster in baseball. No, they were the slowest roster in baseball last year. That's right. We were next to lowest. Next to slowest, whatever. Second slowest, there you go. And so we are seeing Juan Soto be number 2 on that board. Number 3 on that board, Ronald Acuña Jr. He's there. And it's very clear this is health, right? He has to be healthy. He has to be healthy all season. That's the thing that all of us want more so than anything else. I mentioned this on the live show on Wednesday. Ronald obviously played winter ball, and in his 16 games of winter ball, his stats are absolutely bonkers, right? He hit 358 with a 507 on base, a 623 slug, 71 plate appearances. He walked 16 times. He hit 4 home runs. He was 11-0 in stolen bases. Just kind of nuts, right? Going into 2023, he did a similar thing, right? He went to winter ball. He hit 441, was 1160 OPS in 10 games and 39 plate appearances. He only stole like 3, he didn't steal it all that offseason. He hit 2 home runs, and then he turned around and put up 73 stolen bases and 41 homers. So I don't know if it was doing the winter ball. I don't know if it was getting ready for the WBC. But if you remember, the big thing for Ronald that season, more so than anything else, is he dropped his strikeout rate from his usual 23-24% down to 11.4%. 2023, he cut his strikeout rate by more than half. Was it winter ball? I don't think so, because he did winter ball after 23, and he was back. Was it the World Baseball Classic? Maybe. We'll find out this spring. He's not been officially announced, but he has confirmed that he's gotten approval from the Braves to play for Team Venezuela. So we'll see what happens. But Ronald Acuña Jr., clearly best odds of any Brave to win MVP, plus 1,000. The next Braves player is really surprising, because if you would think about what voters like in MVP voting, right? They like the big round, guys hitting 40 home runs or 40-40 seasons, all that kind of stuff, right? And so my first thought was the second Brave on the board should be Matt Olson, right? He led baseball with 54 home runs a couple seasons ago. And that's the kind of thing that can get you an MVP, right? He was a finalist that year for MVP, but obviously Ronald won it because of the 40-70 season. Nope. Next Brave on the list, Austin Riley at plus 4,000. Matt Olson's at plus 6,000. Like, Riley has the same MVP odds as Kyle Schwarber. He has better MVP odds than Freddie Freeman and Pete Crow Armstrong and Bryce Harper. And it's just one of those, like, really interesting. They're clearly believers in Austin Riley rebounding too. If you assume that Riley's struggles have been because of injury, which I don't necessarily think it's obviously his issues in counting stats was missing time. He's averaged 106 games a year the last 2 seasons. But even when he was playing, he wasn't the same guy. His MVP finished seasons, and we talked about this on the show plenty, 21, 22, and 23, he finished 33 homers, 107 RBI, 38 homers, 93 RBI, 37 homers, 97 RBI. He was within spitting distance of 4,100 in most of those seasons. The last 2 years, his pace, had he played all 162 games, has been 27 homers and 84 RBI. So, I mean, and clearly some of this, like especially last year, he was playing hurt, right? The abdominal stuff was bothering him before he went on the injured list. And this is something I'm really excited about Walt Weiss. I'm hoping that they get a little bit better at protecting these guys from themselves, right? At getting them out of the lineup. If they don't have a great opportunity to rotate somebody else in, guy gets nicked up, maybe he can get a little bit of time off this year and end up being okay. But no, it's surprising to me, right? Joining Matt Olson at plus 6,000 is Drake Baldwin. So that's really interesting because both kind of Riley and Baldwin, their cases are not the case of a guy like a Matt Olson that is just mash a ton of home runs, right? I think both of these guys, their case is built around you hit that, in the high 270s, 280s, whatever. You're walking a bunch. You're driving in, you're putting up good home run numbers, but you're not leading the league in home runs. You're driving in plenty of runs. You're hitting in the clutch. I think both of their cases kind of revolve around that. I do think Riley's speed, especially under Antoine Richardson, gives him a better chance than it does an Olson or a Baldwin to rack up some of those other stats, the stolen bases and things. I know I just talked about Juan Soto being slow, but Baldwin is very slow. Olson's pretty slow too. By contrast, Riley's surprisingly fast, right? So like you've got a couple different Braves in here, and you could see how either Baldwin or Riley could be that well-rounded threat that hits, third, second, third, fourth, whatever, and just ends up being incredibly valuable without leading the league in any one category. There's one more name on here. There's one more Braves player in the MVP boards, and it's Ozzie Albies at plus 2,000. And I'm a little bit torn on this one. I mean, he's on there. He's going to get action from Braves fans. He's the longest tenured Brave. He's a fan favorite. If you look at what Ozzie started to do late, he really started to pick it back up. In August, slug of 414. In September, slug of 462. He hit 7 of his 16 home runs in the final month and a half of the year before he went down with the broken hand. As he got farther away from that broken wrist, his bat speed got better, his exit velocities got better. It really feels like the first half Ozzie was really hampered by lingering soreness or lack of strength or whatever in the wrist. The broken bone in his hand, that's not the same kind of injury. That is absolutely something that will heal quicker than what he was dealing with the wrist. So I see the case to have Ozzie in there. Again, maybe under Antoine Richardson, he steals a little bit more. If he's back to being closer to the Ozzie Albies of old, right? Hitting 250, 260, something like that. Maybe hopefully a little higher. Walking, he continues to get better about walks. He's still not to league average. But last year, he walked just under league average at 8.2% of the time. It's the highest full season mark of his career. You're getting close to league average on walks, get a little better, in the contact department, hit for more power. You could see Ozzie. I don't think he's going to win MVP. I don't see his highest finish is 13th in 2021. That's the year he hit 30 homers and had 106 RBI with 20 stolen bases. I don't see that version of Ozzie coming back, but it's nice that he's on the boards. It's a little vote of confidence there from FanDuel about Ozzie Albies. What there's not a vote of confidence on is Atlanta's Rookie of the Year odds. I talked to some folks at FanDuel, found out where they're going to have the Braves on the board when that gets released. We'll talk about that next, right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today, Lindsay Crosby. Let's talk about Rookie of the Year, right? Because there's a couple options for Cy Young, a couple options for MVP. There's really not going to be Rookie of the Year odds, at least at first, for the Braves. And which is weird, because if you think about it, 3 of the last 8 in the National League have gone to the Braves. Ronald Acuña won it in 2018. Michael Harris won it in 2022. Drake Baldwin won it in 2025. And you've had like 2 other runners-up. Soroka was the runner-up in 2019. Strider was the runner-up in 2022. Ian Anderson got votes in 2020. You've been all over the Rookie of the Year boards at the end of the season, but you're not going to here. And it comes back to, one, this is the deepest roster you've had. It was already difficult before you look at this version of the roster. It was already difficult to be able to give playing time, extended looks to rookies. This was just something you just did not have. I always call it runway. You didn't have the available capacity to lose games to break a rookie in. Tom Glavine talks a lot about this. I interviewed Tom Glavine a while back, or Smoltz. I interviewed Smoltz a while back, and both Glavine and Smoltz have talked about this. In 1988, those 2 pitchers went 9-24. They each had an ERA over 4.50, but they got a ton of experience. And the next year, they won a combined 26 games. The reason that was able to happen was because the 1988 Atlanta Braves went 54-106. They weren't competing, or I guess they weren't good enough to compete for then the NL West. The Atlanta Braves right now, we expect them to be back in the postseason. Like I said, this is the deepest bench and roster that you've had for a while. They brought in a veteran outfield bat to be a platoon and 4th outfielder. They brought in 2 veteran relievers. They brought back, Tyler Kinley as well. They brought in a shortstop. They traded for a veteran utility man. There's not a lot of space for rookies to even make the roster. And the most likely guys who would make the roster just aren't rookies anymore, right? The most likely young guys. Nacho Alvarez is a candidate to be your final bat on the bench. I still think you should keep him in Gwinnett every day. Let him play every day in Gwinnett. But Nacho Alvarez is an option to be the final guy off the bench. Guess what? He's not a prospect anymore. Nacho Alvarez exceeded his rookie limits during the 2025 season. The other option for a young player to start the season in Atlanta is Hurston Waldrep. Guess what? He exceeded rookie limits during the 2025 season. They would have had to skip his final start to preserve rookie eligibility, and they didn't do that. I was asking for it here on the show. I think I asked for it in the newsletter too. Just not give him that last start, shut him down early, send him down to Gwinnett so that you could preserve rookie eligibility. They didn't do it. Kind of an unforced error there. Same thing with Bryce Elder. They kept him in the minor leagues like 1 too many days to not use an option year last year. And so now he's out of options, right? But outside of, and there's the fact, back when we talked to AA, I want to say it was before the winter meetings, or maybe it was after the Iglesias signing, whatever. I asked him why the Braves don't use prospects in the bullpen as much as a lot of other teams do. And he pointed out that they do, and I worded the question poorly, but he pointed out that they do. Strider was in the pen, AJ Smith-Shawver was in the pen, etc. He personally loves doing that. The issue is it's hard to get development time for a guy when you are in the bullpen, right? You might pitch 3 innings in a week, whereas if you send them down to Gwinnett and they're a starter, they start on Tuesday, they can start again on Sunday, you may get 10, 12, 13 innings out of them in a week. Compared to the major league level, you might get 3, right? You play a bunch of close games, you might not be throwing your rookie starting pitching prospect into a high leverage 8th inning situation. So there's just not any spots for Braves rookies to get into the conversations. It makes sense that there's no Braves on the list. I do think that if you have somebody win, it's going to be some combination of either J.R. Ritchie or Didier Fuentes. I say that Ritchie is the most polished of those AAA starting pitching prospects who's ready to debut. This is his Rule 5 decision year, so you got to add him to the 40-man roster at some point in time this year. That's why I kept saying they weren't going to call him up last year. It was a workload issue, 1, but 2, they already had too many guys for the 40-man, and he didn't have to be added until this year. This is his year to be added. If you have somebody go down and you need a long-term starter, they may call him up and let him be the guy. And I think if he comes up, you can see he's got 6 different pitches. He's throwing all 3 fastballs, right? You could see how under Jeremy Hefner, he could be good enough to be in the Rookie of the Year conversation. Outside of that, again, for Didier Fuentes, his stuff is just so good. I know the paper numbers were not good, right? Especially in the majors. But on Stuff Plus, he's got 4 pitches at least a 105 or better, right? Throwing a 4-seamer in the mid-90s. He's got a sweeper in the low 80s, a curveball in the high 70s, a splitter in the high 80s. The raw package is there. If you can get a little more consistency and the ability to take workload and innings, combined with the quality of that stuff, it's entirely possible he could hit the ground running if he gets called up. There's guys like Blake Burkhalter, Luke Sennard, who I like those guys. Big fan of those guys. Don't know if they would get called up soon enough to win Rookie of the Year. We saw last year, Cade Horton of the Cubs, who I don't think was as good as the conventional stats say. He had a 2.67 ERA. His FIP was a 3.58. His expected ERA was a 3.88, right? But he did enough, 97 strikeouts, 118 innings. He did enough from a statistical perspective to be in the conversation. He didn't do enough to beat Drake Baldwin as an everyday player. And a lot of the guys that are going to be on this list are outside of Nolan McLean of the Mets, who looked fantastic when he came up late last year. A lot of these guys are position players. Sal Stewart of the Reds, Moises Ballesteros of the Cubs, J.J. Weatherholt of the Cardinals, Justin Crawford of the Phillies, Bryce Eldridge, the massive slugging first baseman for the Giants. There's a ton of position players high in this group, and a lot of those guys are expected to break camp with those teams, right? Weatherholt's probably the starting second or third baseman, depending on what happens with Brendan Donovan. Stewart's probably playing some first base or maybe second if they're not happy with Matt McClain in Cincinnati. Ballesteros is probably the starting DH for the Cubs. Crawford could be the starting center fielder for the Phillies. Eldridge could be combining at first base and DH with Rafi Devers in San Francisco. These guys are all going to be up, if not opening day, pretty close. Owen Casey is going to be a top 10 on this board. He probably now is a starter in Miami on day 1 after the trade. So it's going to be hard for any of these other Braves farther down in the group. Your Burkhalter, your Sennard, even a Fuentes or a Ritchie, to get up soon enough to meaningfully challenge those guys. Ritchie and Fuentes are probably the only ones who legitimately have a shot. And again, if you get to those guys early enough in the season where they can make a Rookie of the Year run, then you had massive pitching injuries for a second straight season, and we're almost ready to just burn down the whole training staff, right? If you have to call J.R. Ritchie up in mid-April, you got problems. We've got a lot of problems to figure out and discuss here and work around, because that's way too early, right? Hopefully, though, if nothing else, enough guys stay healthy where they can break Ritchie in late in 26 and then give him just 27 to eat and just let him be in there on day 1 and let him just roll through the National League. That's probably the best way to do this. That's honestly what I thought they were going to do with Waldrep last year, was not have him make that very last start, send him down, preserve his eligibility, and give him a chance to make a run this year, and they chose not to do that. Maybe an unforced error there. We'll see how Waldrep looks this year. This has been Braves Today for Friday, January 16th. Do me a favor. If you're listening on audio, 5-star review with some kind words would be great. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. The Braves podcast ecosphere all got review bombed just recently on Apple. So if you want to go in and counteract that, I'd appreciate it a lot. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. Don't forget all of the written content over at bravestoday.com. Free or paid subscriptions, either way, helps us out a ton. Until next time, this has been Braves Today.